This is Luke Friesen, and this is the second video in the video about my basement windows. If you watched the last one, I talked about how I have 3 different basement windows that were all unique in their own way, and that I was trying to fix them up, and I fixed them up differently according to what they were. And this one here is my favorite one. This one here I decided to make functional again by unscrewing it from the frame and putting the hinges on and getting them working. So I've got these here guys I snuck off of new windows. They do a good job of holding the whole thing against the weather stripping I put in. I actually changed the weather stripping at one point. This is a double-sided tape that I just never peeled the other side off, and it's extremely thin because there really was not space designed into this frame for any thicker weather stripping. So this stuff here is working really well at keeping a fairly airtight seal. I'm not going to bother unhooking the outer one, but you can see there it's got the slightly thicker black weather stripping there. And this is the one that breathes in both directions, potentially, because I don't imagine it's a perfect air seal around there, and it doesn't have to be as long as it's got the majority. And so it doesn't fog up. That is the main thing. It's like a wall system that breathes in both directions if you didn't have poly on the inside that was caulked together, and the plastic vapor barrier of a wall. I'll get into those details more later, maybe. Okay, so that's that window. Let's move on to my other one over here. This one also works pretty good. This is the only one that was a slider unit. Basically, I guess they had a break-in or something, and they replaced the old style one with, well, they took a wooden frame and put a metal slider into it. And so what I did, since the slider was non-functional anyway, I went ahead and just caulked some more around the inner slider piece as well as the outer frame, and it really sealed up this inside. I have not seen any fog develop on the outside. You can't really see given that I put glazing on this side as well. But this one has been healthy. As far as I know, there's been no rain leaks, there's been no fog or condensation building up in between the two. The fact that there are 2 windows each to these window units, there's an outer frame and an inner frame, that's really where the complication arises. Well, for the last one that I'm going to show you here anyway. This one here is Mr. Problematic. This is one that I put hinges on, or at least it had hinges to begin with, I guess, and I didn't use them. I decided to just seal it up and just caulk the whole thing together. I didn't really have any more latches to latch it closed, I guess, and didn't do the weather stripping. And the outer one as well, I caulked the inside of it, I caulked the outside of it. This top left corner was rotting, and I used spray foam to try and reinforce it, and so the whole thing is really sealed to the outside. And then the inside, I caulked the frame because I had it open, and I caulked the inner part of the frame behind this window unit here, and then I put the window unit in and then caulked the seam of it. And so the glass, of course, was all caulked on all these as well, on both sides. And this guy here is really sealed up. This is the most problematic system I could have possibly made, because now we've got like a wall system with an inner and an outer seal that does not breathe. And so you can see probably that there is fog on the inner side of the outer pane. Let's see if I can bring that up a little bit. You can see it's gotten like there's a layer of dust on there that's really built up from the fogging. The fogging right now is actually, yeah, it's quite visible on the bottom half. It can get really thick in there depending on the weather. Right now it is hot outside. It's like a 25 or so. This is Manitoba, so 25 degrees Celsius is getting warm, and that's why we have the condensation on the outer pane. Last night the weather dropped till I think at least plus 10, so it was getting colder, and we had the fog on the inner, well, the other side of this inner pane. I woke up and it was all fogged up on this inner window on the other side, and so just depending on where the cold is, it'll have condensation, and sometimes I've seen it on both sides at the same time. And that's really how wall systems work when they're not breathing. In places like Florida, warm and wet places, they have to worry about making sure their walls can always breathe in, because the outside of the wall is always where the humidity is, and we have air conditioning on the inside. It causes that humidity to condense so much that they have to make sure that all that humidity can just breathe into the house and get dried up by their AC or whatever. And the colder places, like where we are here in Manitoba, we make sure we have our poly on the inside of the wall. We use our plastic poly like mad, and we caulk that stuff together so that it can breathe out but not in. We don't want our humid inside getting to the outer cold section in the winter and condensing on the inside of the outer part of the wall. If that all makes sense. I think I may have explained this all together in the previous video anyway. But what I've got here is a real problem, is what I want to show you here. There is some dirty looking blackness starting to build up on that side there. It's getting pretty noticeable to me. And that would be mildew growing in there, because it's just always so damp. It's a nice place for mildew to grow. It's warm enough in the summer right now to treat these kind of conditions, and that's not going to go away. Once that starts, unless I get that to dry up, it's probably just going to get worse. And so now I've got to tear apart this guy. I'll try to do more updates as to how I'm going to fix this. There are a couple of things that I could do, like temporarily. I could just take a drill and drill holes in here. That's what I did in the winter. If you remember in the last video, I was dealing with the issue of condensation happening on the inner pane in the winter, and what I did was I took a small drill bit and I drilled like 30 holes in the outer frame, the outside. That's why you can see the little piles of sawdust in the inside here, because I drilled a ton of little holes in there in order to allow it to breathe outward, and it worked. Eventually, once I had enough holes, I added enough, and it breathed out enough that it stopped fogging up in there, even when it got really, really cold. It also helped that I actually took another piece of plastic and did the double-sided tape all the way around this guy here, and made another seal to try to keep the humidity from getting in there. And then, unfortunately, it rained once we got the spring, and those little holes started leaking. What do you know? And so I caulked those holes shut from the outside to keep rain from getting in, naturally. And that worked. The rain has not been nearly so much of a problem, and now because it doesn't have those breathe holes, I could add them to the inside and let it breathe in now, but then I would end up having the same problem in the winter that I did last winter, and I'd have to caulk these guys shut, re-drill the holes from the outside, and just keep on doing that, I guess, every season, which is dumb. And so, what I'm going to try to do is undo my caulking and you make the same setup, at least on this inner frame that I did in the bathroom, and use weather stripping and have the hinges functional and have latches. And then I'll be able to at least open the whole thing up and let it dry out whenever I have fogging one way or another, and I can fix the mildew issue and kill that stuff. So I'll try to do some updates on that as I go. We'll see.